All right, everybody. Welcome to how to connect your projects with your goals using a mind map. And I'm going to start off with some slides, but I promise you, we're not going to be looking at too many slides. I personally can't stand slides. I find them to be extremely boring. um, that's just me. So we're going to make most of this about the demonstration once I actually get into the meat. But I want to spend a few minutes giving you some of the real kind of background to this. I'm told I have to do this, even though I sort of hate this part. But I will go along with the guidance I've received because I've learned to sort of trust and rely on this. So who's this for? It's for accountants and bookkeepers who are tired of missing goals, those seeking a fresh, focus-driven perspective, and anyone wanting to engage both creativity and logic, and strugglers who are ready to finally achieve their goals. It sounds kind of salesy, right? But the reality is that's who this is for. And the reason I'm doing this is because I had an experience myself going into this year where it's just sort of connected for me one day where I was listing out my goals. And quite honestly, I hadn't updated my own goals template that I give to everyone in 97 Up, the one that you're going to see actually. And I'll explain how you can get access to it by the end of this webinar. Also, for those of you who hang around to the end, you'll have an opportunity to win either a $100 or $50 gift card. But you got to stay till the end, and then we're going to pick three people. And I'll explain how that works when we get there later on. But I was looking at my own goals and I was like, I so much has changed in my own business model over recent years, especially that I felt like I really should sit down and just start from scratch and build out my model. And as I did, as I went through the process that I'm going to share with you today, I made some connections in ways that I'd never done before. I never thought about it that deeply. Like, okay, now that I've got the goals, what projects do I have going on? And what are the activities that support those projects? And frankly, which of these projects really does support the goals that I've just spent several hours laying out and refining and redefining? And then it occurred to me how much sense this actually makes. Because then, as I was making these connections and I was doing it in a mind map in a product you're going to see called the brain, and I said, this just makes a lot of sense because as I was doing that, I was like, this project really doesn't support these goals that well. I'm going to put it on the back burner. It's not as important, right? And it just gave me a level of clarity that I've frankly not experienced before. And that's what I'm hoping to give you the building blocks for how you can achieve the same thing, by the time we're done with today's webinar, right? So if you've struggled even a little bit with setting and reaching goals, this should make all the difference. Okay. And just to be sure, everybody can see my screen, I assume. You can see my who is this for slide before I go on, because I've made that mistake of like just zooming off and all of a sudden people are in the chat going, hey, it's Seth, we can't see your screen. So now Mariette's saying, are we seeing slides yet? But others are saying, yes, we can see them. So Mariette, maybe you're looking at the wrong thing on your screen. I hope. Anyway, looks like everybody can see. Perfect. So who's this not for? Right? That's the next question. Well, if this is who it's for, who's it not for? Well, let me move some things around my screen that are just kind of getting in the way. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties. All right. So who's it not for? People who think they've got it all figured out, and maybe you do. Maybe you do have it all figured out, but I'm assuming nobody would have registered for this webinar who felt that they had it all worked out, unless sometimes, and as I say that, it occurs to me, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I'll register for something like this, even if I think it's something I'm really good at, because I'm just curious to see what somebody else's approach is. And I've had people actually admit that to me before. So that's fine. It's definitely not for somebody who, if you think you can sort of succeed by just kind of winging it, and not really taking the time to do the planning, right? Right. So that's definitely not who this is for. It's also not for anyone who's not willing to put in the work, because as you're going to see, and the reason I sort of chose my words carefully a few minutes ago when I explained, by the end of this, I don't expect you're going to have the whole model and the whole thing done. That's why I said you're going to have the framework for how to do it, but you're going to have to put in the work and set aside the time, hopefully sooner rather than later, because in my experience, you got to follow up on these things while it's fresh. So you got to be willing to pull in the work. Like I said, I spent several hours, probably more than several, building mine out this year and doing everything, because then as you'll see, it's an iterative process where as you go in and kind of work on one part, it drives you back to something you've already done to kind of refine it. And you'll understand once I show you the process, what this is all about and why. Okay, so what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes, I'll teach you about my bulletproof goal setting technique and show you why I think it's the best way to achieve your specific and well-defined goals. I'll show you how to get started with this process, even if you're a beginner. I'll show you a massive shortcut or secret that you can use to get results faster and experience results immediately with what I'm calling my bulletproof goal setting process. And then I'll break down my entire bulletproof goal setting blueprint or method or strategy, whatever you want to call it, for step by step, and we'll give you a simple roadmap that you can follow to build this out yourself. Okay. And then I'll show you how accountants and bookkeepers just like you are starting to use this. Actually, we've been using it for years in 97 and up. I'm just kind of taking things to a slightly, a slight other level with the mind map piece of this. But the template we're going to see is something I've been sharing with 97 and up for years. And the funny thing about that, by the way, is that I have many times over the years sat down, opened up the template at the beginning of the year and thought, all right, I need to update this. I need to improve it. There's got to be ways I can improve it. And honestly, every time I sit down to do that, I am at a total loss. I can't. One time I even said, forget this. I'm going to start with a blank. And as I was trying to rebuild it from scratch, thinking I could improve upon it, I found very quickly that really what I was doing was recreating exactly what I already had. So in my own experience, of course, I'm a little biased because it's my own template. But like I said, I've honestly tried. I don't think it can be improved upon. I think I think most of you will agree with me, but I'm happy to hear about it if you don't. But you'll see it's very thorough. It kind of accounts for everything. The only complaint I could see you having is, as I referenced already, it's a bit of work, but it's a bit of work one time to get it set up. And then the maintenance part is very, very easy to do. And frankly, I think you'll find you enjoy it. I think you'll find, hopefully, if your experience is anything like mine, you'll be excited about it. You'll be excited to dive in and do this. So in case some of you don't know, it looks like I know most of you just looking at the names, but just in case there's people here who have no idea who I am, my name is Seth David. I created the bulletproof bookkeeping mechanism, which is how I've launched a bunch of courses over recent years called bulletproof bookkeeping courses. And many of you already know me, like I said, because many of you have purchased my courses or you're members of 97 and Up, and some of you may even be members of my newest Galaxy support community. So the bottom line, I've been at this for a while and I've sort of become obsessed with finding ways to optimize productivity and transform accountants and bookkeepers who are tired of a business model that has hardly changed since the industrial age. So that is kind of my mission these days that I've set out to accomplish, which is to help everybody transform and get into something that's more 2025 instead of like 1915, if you will. So, question, does any of this sound like you? You're struggling with focus and feeling its negative ripple effects, right? Are you scared that as you look at your list of goals for the year, you'll find yourself looking at them again in December, only to carry them forward once again? Because that's what happened with me, actually. That's what truly inspired me to do this. Is at the end of 2024, I was looking back at some of the goals I had set at the beginning, and I found that there were quite a few of them, much more than I was happy to admit, that I was now carrying forward into this year because I just never did them. I just never accomplished them. I never did or developed the projects that I would have needed to in order to accomplish those objectives, those goals. So I said, all right, I want to do something different this year because what I don't want to do is carry them forward once again, only to find that I'm back in the same spot in a year from now, right? What else? Let's see. Have you tried setting your goals, but you're stuck and feel like you haven't made much progress? Somebody made a comment, I forget where now, but where they, I think 97 and up, I've gone over a little bit of this. And so I think that's where it was. Somebody made the comment that this is much better than just like making the list of goals, because that's what a lot of us do is we'll sit down and maybe list the goals out on a piece of paper or digital paper or wherever. But we don't really go any further than just making the list and saying, oh yeah, cool. This is what I want to do. I want to build a bookkeeping practice and I want to get more clients. That's too vague, right? We have to be a lot more specific and intentional, frankly, than that. Okay. And maybe you've been told that you have to set goals, but you just feel like there's something missing or just a better way compared to whatever process you've had for this. right? Or you've seen others, heard stories of people who seem to have achieved seemingly insurmountable goals effortlessly, right? There's a lot of people talking that way, especially at the beginning of the year, right? But bottom line, if everything you've tried, you haven't been able to get there yourself, then you're in the right place, okay? Most importantly, I want to make sure that it's clear to you the following: that you're not crazy or lazy or stupid or anything like that. Okay. If anything, you've just been following bad or incomplete advice from well meaning people. Maybe some of them aren't well meaning. I don't know. But setting goals alone isn't enough. Like I said, you need a detailed process for measuring progress and a system around this that translates to routine. Another, I think, sort of influence of mine on this is where I have been working on developing a coaching program that I hope to launch very soon, actually, where I was outlining and I was thinking about, okay, what is coaching really? And long story short, and with the guidance that I get from, somebody that I think of as a mentor, especially when it comes to designing these kinds of educational programs, he shared with me that, because I was going to actually start off by plugging people's access into certain courses that I've already got, because I'm like, this is the material that I want to teach in this. And he says, no, that's not coaching. He says, in fact, the last thing you want to do is give people access to a course and just throw a course at them and say, here, go take this course, because most of the people won't do it, right? They might have the best of intentions, but you know how that goes. How many times have you signed up for a course and, with the best of intentions, you're going to start, and then a week and a month and 6 months goes by and you're like, man, I never did get into that course that I paid for, right? I know because I sell courses and people tell me that they have that exact experience, right? So, what I'm getting at is what he explained to me about coaching is that coaching is where you're really doing much more sort of hand holding with people. And really, what it translates to in terms of design is I'm designing exercises that anybody who signs up for the program, once I launch it, will go through the exercise each week and then come back and we review, right? That's coaching. Very, very different than throwing a course at you and saying, go take this course, right? And that becomes a routine, because now if we're going to meet once a week and review the exercise you've done, you have to do it, right? Not to mention that, frankly, the cost associated with it is one where you're not going to spend the kind of money we'll be talking about when the time comes and not actually take the time to do it. That's a factor, and it's by design. We purposely make these things expensive because we want people who are really serious about doing it, and we want to make sure you're motivated, right? Okay, now let's fast forward 12 months and imagine that next December you can look at your goals. And unlike what I experienced for myself this year, you can actually check them all off. Maybe there's like one little thing that you're like, okay, no big deal. I'll get that done, in the first quarter of next year, worst case, but not like I experienced where I had really a long list of goals that I had hoped to accomplish, and just none of them. I just had to carry them all into the next year. So imagine yourself in December of 2025 checking off those goals. Okay. And one thing, by the way, I might as well mention here that we've been doing, I've had a lot of people in 97 and up doing this, and in some of the other communities, that are tied into my courses, where if you haven't done anything like this, I strongly suggest now that you go into your calendar and advance yourself out to December and block off like the last 2 weeks of the month as time for you. Plan on taking that full 2 weeks off. You'll see the way it lays out. I think December 15th is like a Monday. So you basically take off from the 15th through New Year's. Plan that now. Everybody who's done this has agreed with me that it feels really good to go ahead now and proactively do that. And then what happens is you have to work backwards from there, from now until then, as far as making sure you arrange things, you don't book appointments, and you let your clients know that they need to get you everything well before then. Otherwise, it's not getting looked at till January, right? And that way you protect that. You fiercely protect that, because that's for you, and that's what you've all, I don't doubt, even those of you I don't know well, I don't doubt for a minute that you all deserve, you work hard enough, you deserve to have that time to relax, especially knowing that come January, there's a lot that we have to do hitting the ground running. Everybody's still trying to get 1099s out right now. And of course, officially today, tax season has launched. So, there's a lot, and might as well give yourself the break while you can. It's so important to reset and recharge when you can. And that's the perfect time to do it. Plus, your family will be so thankful that you had all that extra time to spend with them, right? So think forward, think 12 months imagine you're able to check off all those goals and take time off that you've arranged now. Like I said, how would this affect your life? Right. And assuming one of those goals was based on, frankly, having much more money in the bank, uh, which is much more than how much money you make, right? It's you don't necessarily have to make a ton of money. It's about keeping a portion of the money that you make. I think we make this mistake a lot with our own clients. We don't really think about ourselves at all. We think about our clients and we start working with them because the client's default is to focus on how much profit they want to make. But nobody ever stops and says, okay, but how much of that are we actually going to keep? Right. So one of the ways I encourage people to define a goal is yes, define what you want to make in terms of a profit, but also define what you want in your operating fund. And beyond that, what do you want to increase your savings by? Right. Super, super important. Right. And if you're able to accomplish those two goals based on how much money you want to make and then how much you have in the bank, you'd have a lot more financial security for both your business and for yourself personally. So that would be a big deal, right? That would probably be really cool, right? And I know money can't buy you happiness, but it's a resource. It provides comfort. And if you know that everything's taken care of because you've reached goals like these that you can set now for the end of the year, that'll help you relax so much more when you do take those 2 weeks off at the end, because the last thing you won't be worried about the fact that you're not making money to pay the bills. Plus, if you really take my advice and move everything over to a subscription based model for everything that you do, then you can take all the time you want off. And assuming you've done the work and put the systems in place, you're not going to miss a beat taking 2 weeks off at the end of the year. Still the same amount of money is going to come in, maybe even more, right? So let's talk about the first step, and then I'm going to share my screen in a minute, I promise, and we're going to dive into the interesting parts. Okay. Um, let's see. To save time, I've started us off with the mind map that I'm going to share with you because it would take up a lot of time to show you how to build it from scratch. But I will talk through, how this kind of gets built. And then we'll come back to it. I'm going to show you a few steps before we get to the mind map. Then we're going to come back to the mind map. And then, like I said, you're going to see we're going to do a little bit of back and forth work between what's going to be the financial model, which is how we lay out the financial goals, and then how we go back to the mind map and sort of tag things and do exactly what the title of the webinar suggests, which is link up our projects to those goals that we've set. Okay. And the simple trick to this is that it's not super fast, nor should it be. If you get done with an exercise like this in 5 or 10 or even 30 minutes, you're probably not being thorough enough, right? And so it's not meant to be fast, it's meant to be effective. And I'm saying all this to kind of prepare you that even by the time we're done with today's webinar, you're going to have the framework, like I've said, and then you're going to have some work to do, but you're going to have, I hope, really like crystal clarity in terms of exactly what you need to do and how to lay it out. And I'm going to teach you how you can do it yourself. And then, like I said, I'm going to show you by the end how you can get access to the very robust template that I have. I'll spoil it for you now. The short answer is it's included with 97 and up, and I'm going to give you a chance to try 97 and up for free for 30 days. So do that. You'll have access to the template for free, even if you don't renew the template's yours, once you have it. So again, it's effective. And like I said, I think you'll have fun working on this because it should be. It should be exciting to think about these are the goals and to really think about it this concretely, which I think a lot of us just don't feel like we have the time to do. And yet once you do it, you'll realize that you really couldn't have afforded not to do this, right? It's so important. It makes so many other things line up, right? Just from everything in terms of now you'll see the value and power in having a niche or two or three at the most, right? Because you'll see how setting the goals when you go that deep with it may very likely point to a specific kind of client that you're shooting for. And more importantly, it'll sort of point to the kinds of clients that you don't necessarily want, right? So that's the story. Now I'm going to do something here. And I'm going to ask you all, this is interactive. So I want everybody to open up a new browser tab on your screen. Hopefully you have two monitors. Put me on one, put this browser tab on the other so you can kind of follow along with what I'm going to have you do. Okay, and I don't see any questions in the chat. So, and what's going to happen is if you do have questions, use the chat. And I have Dimpy here helping me. So everybody say hi to Dimpy. Be nice to her. She's a very nice person. And she's going to help me kind of moderate the chat. and make sure that if anybody has any questions, and if it's something timely as in something I'm talking about right at the moment, she'll interrupt me. If not, then she will kind of log the questions and I'll get to them, a little later. So some cases, especially if the question pertains to something I haven't talked about yet, I love this. Everybody's saying hi to Dimpy now in the chat. Then we may just hold it because I know that it's going to be answered later on. So everybody got a new browser tab open? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you do, if you got a new browser tab open. Or you can raise your hand or just do something. All right, good. Here's what I want you to do. This is your first, people sometimes refer to these little tips I give that really don't have anything specifically to do with the material itself, but they call them my golden nuggets, right? This is one of my major golden nuggets, what I'm about to share with you. So everybody brace yourselves. In your browser tab, I want you to type sheets.new and hit enter. How do I get the top readout? Oh, so this is a browser extension, what you're seeing here, called Momentum Dash. So if you search Momentum Dash on the web, you'll find whatever extension is appropriate for whatever browser you happen to use. That's how I have this all set up, and there's different times. So Loretta, this is why I thought I knew what time it was. According to this, it's now 5:56 a.m. in all of Australia. It doesn't get specific enough as to like the city or what coast you're on. So anyway, so that's in Perth. All right, I'll have to update that. But anyway, so that's Momentum Dash. There's another little golden nugget. It's a really cool app too because I love the pictures. The pictures are as beautiful, much nicer to look at than whatever default browser tab most of you probably have set. And then I do like the clock and the little motivational quotes they give me every day. All right, so now poof, you're in a new Google Sheet. Yay. And what I want you to do is just leave a few blank rows. Okay. And maybe go in. I always like to kind of start off not exactly in cell A1, right? I want to just leave some room in case I need to do something above or to the side. Not sure how because I'm on an iPad. So on an iPad, just open up a browser on the iPad, right? Same as you would on a computer. And then same thing, just go to sheets.new. It should work. You may need to be logged into a Google account to do this because this is a Google product, right? So like a Gmail account or something, right? But it's definitely free. So what I want you to do is let's just put a number down, right? By way of this is like your gross over the top lofty goal, how much you want to bring in gross revenue this year, right? And I know we're almost done with the first month, so bear that in mind as needed, but let's just say you wanted $1 million. Okay. Or put whatever is appropriate, put whatever feels comfortable to you. It should almost make you a little uncomfortable. So if you just put down like 100,000, I would encourage you push that up to like 200,000, right? Just in other words, raise the bar just a little bit, light a little bit of a fire under where, right? So maybe yours is half of that, maybe a quarter, whatever it is, put down the number. I just like to have you think in terms of what that number should look like. And it's a good thing to refer back to later after you've built out the whole model, because one of the things we want to do once we've built out the whole model is total everything up and then compare it and ask, did our model, when we lay it out all the details, add back to something that's in the ballpark of what this number was? And that's going to be our first like check or balance with the whole process. Because if it's way off, then we have to consider, were we overly lofty with this number, or were we overly conservative with our forecast, right? It may come out the other way. It may be that our forecast comes out way higher than our original gross number. So what we're doing here, it's like giving yourself the kind of control group that you can refer back to and make sure that what you end up coming up with is kind of reasonable, quote unquote. Okay. Now, what I want to have you do next is somewhere below that, and let's say in column A, we're going to type the word volume. Okay, and then over in column B and below that, you can bold and underline that just to make it stand out as kind of a header. Okay, I want bookkeeping services. I can't type. Okay, then tax prep / planning. Okay, and then the last one we'll put coaching slash advisory or consulting, and you put whatever kind of one or two or three services you are currently offering or planning to offer, right? That fits. Unless you just happen to like what I've put here, then by all means follow suit. Okay. And then actually each of these, I want you to list a monthly rate. Now, as I said earlier, my hope is that one day you'll all be subscription-based accounting and bookkeeping firms, right? But I'm assuming most of you aren't or aren't yet. So I still want you, as we're doing this exercise, I want you to think like that. So even if somebody here is billing by the hour, no shame. If you're still doing that, that's fine. A lot of people are. But I want you to think, okay, just very roughly, if I'm billing by the hour, what does my monthly revenues come out to be for any one of these services, right? So let's just say rough numbers, bookkeeping services is going to be 1,000 a month. Okay. And let's just make these look like currency. Okay. And then for tax prep and planning, let's say 1,500 a month. And then for coaching and advisory, 2,500, not 1,000, 2,500 a month, something like that. Okay. Now, and assume it's all in, right? So again, subscription model means I'm not charging for different levels of bookkeeping services based on what I do. The idea of subscription model is, and especially as contrasted with value pricing, which you're probably familiar with by now, we're not trying to price what the value is to the client for what we're doing. Instead, we're trying to price our entire portfolio of services. So assume that any client of yours who signs up is going to sign up for all of the services that you offer, whether they use them or not, right? Think Netflix. When I subscribe to Netflix, I don't call up customer service and try nickel and dime them because I don't watch half their programming, right? I know I understand. I've subscribed to their entire library of programming and I just watch the stuff I want to and I'm not mad about it, right? It's just the way a subscription works. Same idea here, same concept. So maybe we normally charge different rates depending on if we're just doing like what I call download code and reconcile. We're just doing bank feeds and rules management, account reconciliation, right? Maybe we charge something extra for payroll, another something extra for sales tax. Are we managing accounts receivable and payable for them? Take whatever you might have been charging for each of these separately, add them up, and then pad that and convert that into a monthly subscription that you're going to charge, and it's all of it. So if they don't need sales tax, fine, then they don't use sales tax. But if they do, or if next month they suddenly do, you're not going to raise the prices on them because you've already priced it in, right? That's the beauty of a subscription model is we don't have to keep scope creeping the client and kind of nickel and diming them, which is, by the way, what that looks like to them, whether it's justified or not. We just price the portfolio, and that's where the subscription business model just makes so much sense. And it makes your life a whole lot easier as well as the clients, because then you'll just keep plussing the services. You'll just keep adding more to what you offer them and do for them, and you won't charge them any extra unless they need something like major and significant, like a major cleanup job. And guess what you do there? You slide them up to a higher tier subscription while you're working on the cleanup job. And as soon as the cleanup job's done, you slide them right back down to your base subscription. And that's how you deal with extra stuff or one-off projects. It's not a scope creep thing. It's just, oh, you need this done. We're going to slide you up on to the next subscription tier, period. Okay. So that's how I want you thinking as you think about what this number should be. And remember, for our purposes right in this moment, it's very rough. You're gonna, like I said, want to go back and spend time with this later, so you can think more detailed about what these numbers really should be. So very, very roughly, just get 1 to 3 services written out and a rough monthly rate for each that we're gonna charge. Okay, and like I said, make it a little audacious, but not like ridiculously out of reach either. Right, just balanced. Okay, so now we're gonna sketch in our timeline. Okay. So let's pretend for a minute that January isn't almost over. So I'm going to put the date of January 1st, 2025. And then we're going to write a formula equals E date. Okay. And what this formula does is it lets me point to, in this example, the previous one, the one that I just hard coded, and just increment the month by 1. So E date, that guy, comma 1, how many months I want to increment it by. So pro tip, if you want to lay out some kind of a quarterly timeline, you would do comma 3, right? Or 4, whichever one actually works. Right? But I just want 1 month, so I'm gonna do that, and then I can copy my formula to the right, right? Just out to December. Okay. And now what I might do is insert a column to the left here, just a little bit of a spacer. Okay. And what we want to do here is put in the number of clients. This is volume, right? So the number of clients for January, put in the number of clients you actually have. And if you have to go look it up, then don't worry about it. Like I said, just something rough for now. But eventually you will want to go back and look up the exact number of clients you have in each of these services that you've described. Right? So the formula again is eDate, right? And then open parentheses, point to the cell that's got that first date in it, comma 1, meaning increment that by 1. And then once you do that the first time, copy and paste it to the right. Okay. And then this next part, just put in the volume. So let's say I have 5 clients in my bookkeeping services, right? And maybe, and of course, there might be overlap, right? I might have these 5 in tax planning and prep also because they're hiring me for both. And then maybe there's another 5 that just do the tax planning and prep and have their own bookkeeper or whatever, right? And maybe I have like 1 right now in the coaching. And now what you want to do is just put in some kind of an assumption, and we're going to write a simple formula that makes an assumption about how much we want each of these services to increase by in terms of the number of people we have signed up. In other words, how many new clients am I going to get each month in each of these services? Okay. Oh, thank you, Mary, for providing that in the chat. So I'm going to just do it simple and quick for now. Let's assume that for bookkeeping, I want 1 new client every month. Right? And Google Sheets quickly tried to have me just copy that formula down, but I'm not going to let it do that because I might want a different assumption for these other 2. But once I've got that in place, I can just copy and paste that to the right. And as you'll see, it'll just assume it goes up by 1 every month. Also think in terms of this being kind of the net number of clients, right? There might be some attrition. So really what we're saying is even after, if we've lost any clients, this is what we're landing on is a net increase of 1 new client every month. Okay. And then for tax prep and planning, I would expect it to be a little less frequent, right? Because it's a higher value service. So maybe for here, I do 10. So maybe like every other month, it would be +1. And so then the next month would be equal. And now I just take these 2 cells. Okay. So just backing up on that. If I wanted to make the assumption that it increases by 1 every other month, then I start off with 10, whatever I keyed in there. Okay, in the next month, I'm going to assume it's the same. Okay, and then I'm going to do the next 2 months still because I want 2 consistent months with the formula as opposed to what I have here, which is where I hard keyed the amount. Okay, so in the next one, I'm going to say, okay, here it increases by 1. And then here it's just going to be equal. It's going to be the same. And now I just take these 2 cells, Control C, and paste it out. Okay. And so that gets that assumption done. This one, I'm just going to first copy out the number 1 kind of manually. Actually, let's take the second month and just make it equal. Okay. Because at this level, I'm assuming we would get the smallest number of new clients, right? Maybe, and we probably oftentimes we don't want too many new clients in the highest tier because typically the highest tier also eats up a lot more of our resources, especially our own attention, right? But let's say here in March, I expect to get 1 because it's like the end of tax season. And that's when people sometimes realize, hey, I need some help, some coaching, right? Your tax clients will often come back to you and say, hey, you just did my return. Can you give me some advisory analysis on it? And that's when you can say, yeah, we just need to slide you up to the coaching subscription, which is at $2,500 a month. I'll be happy to do meetings with you once a week or whatever it is, and we can review your financials and especially do an initial, larger review of what we just uncovered with your taxes. So another example with subscriptions where you could say, I can slide you up to that. And then if you feel like you don't need it after a few months, we can slide you back down to the basic tax prep and planning. Again, that's the beauty of subscriptions is you can slide them up and down based on what they need, when they need it, and then move them back, right? And so maybe right after tax season, let's say May, we get a couple more. So, sometimes that's what you do is just manually, right? So just get a rough sketch here. Okay. And then here we're going to do revenue. And most of you are probably pretty good with numbers. So I think you can figure out where this is going. So what I'm doing is I just wrote a formula that grabs the exact description from up above. Right. So and I'm going to do the same with the rate. So equals, and I just point to that. And I can copy and paste that down. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a minute just to make sure everybody's caught up with me. Those of you who are trying this at home. This is one of these things where I do want you to try this at home. All right. I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm assuming everybody is good. Okay, so here's what we want to do. I want to do the math. I want to take the number of bookkeeping clients that I have each month times the revenue times the monthly rate to come up with the monthly revenue. So equals, I'll take the rate here times the number of clients at that rate here. Okay. Now, before I copy this formula, I need to make sure that I hold this $1,000 or whatever rate is in here constant. Because right now, if I copy it to the right, it's going to want to multiply, by D and so on. So the way to do that is I can edit the formula and I just want column C to stay. So I'm going to put a $sign in front of that. Okay. And now, by the way, having done that, I can copy this down, right, and see that it works, right? Because again, it's what's called relative referencing. So by the time I got to the third one, it's taking this volume times this rate. And now I can copy all of this straight across. Okay. And sometimes after doing something like this, I just randomly will go in and just audit the formula, make sure it's still working, still making sense. Sure enough. Okay. And then what I want to do is two things actually. I want to get the total volume, which is total number of, let's just call it subscribers or members or something like that. Okay, so simple sum formula, sum up everything above except for the date. And of course, I want to do the same thing down here. Copy that across. And this is going to be total revenue. Okay, we're almost ready to go to the mind map. Promise you. But this was important. Okay, so, and the idea here is now I have goals, right? Let's total this across. Total for 2025. And mainly what I'm interested here is the revenue part. Okay. That's not bad, right? Coming out to 466,000. So Lisa, which formula? The E date or because I've gone through a few formulas by now. So if you can clarify the E date one Mary has posted for you. The one to drag each amount. So I'm not following. once you write these formulas after you've totaled up the revenue for each category, you copy and paste it to the right, but just first make sure that you hold that C constant with the dollar sign, right? So the first thing I did was write the first formula, put the dollar sign in, then you copy it down, right? And then you copy that across. So this formula is just the basic math of it, right? You take the volume times the corresponding rate. Okay, so you missed the dollar sign part. Yeah, that's how you hold the reference constant so that as you copy across, C doesn't become D and so on. Okay. So we've got this, and now I've got a total for each of these. So now we have the financial goals, at least in terms of revenue. Notice here, this was our original goal off the top of our head. So this is, you know, before moving on, I would say look back at this and see which you need to adjust, you know, because we're at less than half of what I originally wrote down here. But I might, having done this, say, you know what, this is fair, this is reasonable, it's conservative, I'm comfortable with that. But I'd still leave this here just for reference. Okay. And so now what I want to do is go to the mind map. Just bear in mind, when I'm in the mind map, you won't be able to see this anymore. So I'm going to be referencing these totals, and you'll see exactly how we're going to use these numbers. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the mind map. All right, so everybody can see the mind map now. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, good. So this is called the brain, and I've sketched out, you know, a good rough bit of it for you. But like I said at the beginning, I'll talk you through how, you know, how this gets created kind of from scratch. I just, if I started truly from scratch, we'd be here for another 45 minutes and the webinar would be over before I got to the real important stuff. Okay, so this is called the brain. There are many other mind mapping tools, and generally speaking, they, in principle, they all work the same, right? So if I start here in the brain, each one of these things is called a thought, right? So this is a thought, and this is the central one here. It's called the project and goals mind map. And before that, I as a parent to that, I created this thought called the financial forecast. Over here, you'll see something I did as what's called a side thought. So the way this gets created is you see these little nodules around the thought. I just click and drag. If I wanted to create another sort of sibling, then I just drag there and I name it. If I wanted to create a parent, I drag there. If I want to create another child, I drag there and then name it and hit enter and it gets created, right? So pretty simple. What I always do when I create a new mind map is I'll add something like this in here with resources for how to build a mind map, especially because when I sat down to do this back in December, it had been a while. So I'm like, let me just go through some videos and things, you know, and I found some write-ups and articles that I used that I didn't reference in here and I should have.
Seth, we have a question here.
Okay. Where do
Uh,
we get the mind? So
yeah.
it's called thebrain.com, right? So if you Google mind map or Google the brain app, then you'll find this one on a search for the brain app. Um, but again, it looks like Janine has posted one to a mind map tool. You know, so there's a ton of them out there. But if you want this exact one, it's called the brain app, and you'll find it. It's got a great mobile app too, where you kind of, as you can see, you know, as I create these thoughts on the right, I have this notepad, right? Obviously, I can add pictures, and you'll see some other things too. So what I did was I said, okay, at the top of this, I want to look at my forecast. So now I'm going to show you the template that I share with everybody who's in 97 and up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually launch this out to my browser. And so we're going to go back to my browser for a minute so I can show you this. Okay. So this is the fully built out template. It's got a lot of stuff in here that I'm going to skip in terms of not just setting your financial goals, but time management goals and all kinds of other stuff. I'm going to skip straight ahead to what essentially I just walked you through creating. But you'll see here, in this template, I have multiple tabs for different revenue streams so you can get really focused. And then everything flows back to a goals tab, which summarizes all of your goals. So here's a bookkeeping one, and obviously it's formatted a little prettier, right? So here's like your small, medium, and large bookkeeping plans, and same idea. Everything's just all written out already. So I would just put in, how many clients I get each month. And of course, as soon as I start adding volume, everything gets calculated. And then that flows back to the goals tab, which is here. And notice it just recaps the stuff in total. And then what I'll show you, we'll come back to this later. What I'll show you at the near the end is where there's a goal tracking tab for each month, where each day you're going to go in and key whatever you deposited, on the, let's say, the previous day, and that gets tabulated here. So it compares what your goal for the month is with your month to date actual, and it shows you whether you're under or over, on the month so far. And I'll get into what the specific process and routine is around this that, in my experience, actually helps and forces you to stay focused on this. It makes it impossible to forget your goals. And I'll talk about all the reasons why I think that's so important. Most importantly, the fact that if you start every day doing something like this, then you kind of set the tone for that whole day, and you're much less likely to be prone to giving into distractions because everything gets put through that filter now. Because it's like, I just had to look at my goal. The month is almost over. I'm only 75% to my goal. So is this thing I'm about to get distracted with really a good use of my time or not? The more clear you are about that kind of stuff, the more focused you'll be. I can practically guarantee it. Okay. So we fill out the goal sheet, and then we can start going back to the brain and filling out the information. Okay. So now I'll come back here to the goals, right? And under here, I have goals. So now let's say that after I just did that exercise, really what I'm looking at here is, let's just round it and say what we came up with when we did that layout was 450,000 roughly. Okay. So this is how we list the goals. I literally just drag this down and I say $ 450,000. Okay. And what it's doing here is it's searching my brain, and it sees that I've already got something called that, and I can just link my thought to that one instead of creating a new one. Okay. Now, if I click on this thought, then I can create these little icons. When you're doing something like a mind map, these little visual cues make all the difference. In other words, it's important. Don't think it's trivial. I can promise you it's not. It's what makes this interesting to look at. And again, it's just much more visual. All right. So it looks like I ended up creating this thought for 450,000 just by itself. So we're going to delete that. Okay, so we have 450,000 in annual revenue over here. Remember, I said one of the goals should be based on how much money I want in the bank. So let's say I want 150,000 in operating funds. Like that's what's in the bank account every month when I reconcile it. Certainly after payroll, this is what I want to make sure I'm left with. And then we have the non-financial goal, which is, I would say, more important for a number of reasons that I'll possibly get into later, is the goal that has to do with what I've learned to refer to as purpose driven, right? So we want to think bigger than just, of course, everybody wants to make a profit. That's a given. We have to make a profit in order to stay in business. But let's go past that and ask ourselves, how do I want to make the world a better place than I found it when I'm all done, right? And so to me, it's very important to set a goal that's along these lines. And this is just one. Of course, there can and probably should be more than one, right? But anybody who knows me knows that I love my dogs. I have I have two dogs now. I had three dogs before them, and they are my life, right? Everything I do practically is for them. So I love animals, and I definitely love my dogs. So that's why this cause is near and dear to my heart. So when I started reading and learning about building and evolving a business that's what we call purpose driven, right? This is what I've started to define as what I want to be my purpose. I want to rescue 200 puppies. Notice the goal is not defined in terms of how much money I'm going to donate, but rather how many puppies I'm going to rescue. It's a very rough calculation that I came up with. And as I talk more with these rescues that I'm going to be supporting and get more data from them, I'll try and get more specific about this. This can vary significantly. I mean, the rescue that I recently helped I hadn't done a Black Friday promo in like 2 years. And going into end of last year, I said, you know what? I'm going to do a Black Friday promo because I want to drink this Kool-Aid. And so I said 10% of all the proceeds from my Black Friday promo are going to go to Dachshund and Friends, which is the rescue where we got our what I call them the goddesses because their names are Aphrodite and Artemis. And as at the end of that promo, I donated nearly $1,600 to them based on 10% of the proceeds. So you can do the math, you can figure out what I did. But bottom line, this is the most important goal. I can almost promise you, if you focus on this kind of goal and several of them, these other financial goals will have a way of taking care of themselves. That's kind of what I've seen and a little bit of what I've experienced, right? So we've got the goals, the financial, most importantly, we've got the purpose driven goal. And now the question becomes, what are my projects, right? What projects do I have that are going to support these goals? Okay. And just a fresh example that I thought would be fun to include here is let's say I want to take advantage of the fact that there's people who probably should be leaving bench.co as a service and looking for like a real bookkeeper. So I said, what if we build a campaign around bench? And what I did here was I just roughly estimated. I said, let's say from based on grabbing some bench clients at whatever monthly rate I think I'm going to get, charge them times whatever monthly fee they're going to pay. What I did here was I created a label based on the value of that project, based on what I think that project is going to bring in. So when I click on this, actually, it's not a label. Sorry, it's a tag. Okay. So I created a tag called value and I created a sub tag based on the amount. Right. And this is, you can use tags for a lot of different things in here. So that's why I wanted to structure it because this way, anything that's related to assigning a value, and you can assign multiple tags to a thought here. So anything value related would, you know, be set up like this. And then you can see I've color coded them. Right. So like I was saying earlier, the attention to detail on this is actually very important. So here's the actual tag. It looks like a thought, right? But it's a tag. Notice here it says tag abbreviation. And what I just took the second that I needed to define the color scheme so that now when I assign this tag to a thought, it's green for money. It sticks out like this is what I think this project is going to bring in. Which in terms of connecting it to my goals, well, this is going to support the revenue goal directly, right? And if you look down at the bottom of my screen here, and keep in mind, if you're thinking about using some other mind mapping tool, every mind mapping tool works a little different. But with the brain, it gives me the breadcrumbs of all the thoughts I've recently visited. And so here's my $450,000 annual revenue goal. It's just still sitting there. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it and link it to that. And now it's going to bring it down here. So now I have this campaign is going to support this goal. And I can see the value I've assigned. And assuming I achieve that objective, then I'll be that far along the way to achieving this goal. Okay. Now let's go to coaching and advisory. And I'm going to go look at my spreadsheet that we set up earlier that I know you can't see, right? I'm going to go look at the goal we set for coaching and advisory. The total for the year came out to 115,000. So I'm going to add that tag here. Okay. So I need a new tag, 115. And I'm purposely leaving out the comma for a minute because the way the brain works, if I put a comma in here, it thinks I'm creating two and it'll create two separate ones. So these are little things you learn the more you play around with the tool. So I'm going to create it and then I'll go back and edit it to make it more legible. So 115,000. Okay. And then that's here. It won't let me move it yet. So I'm going to just create it. And notice I click on it and it assigns it. But now what I want to do is I'm going to go up to tags here. Okay. And I'm going to go to value. And actually, let's go to 115,000. So there's a button up here that gets me direct access to my tags. So I'm going to go to 115,000. Now, notice the most two recent thoughts are the value and the 115. So I'm going to take the 115 and add as its parent the value one. Okay. Now I have to look into why it's not doing something important that I believe it's supposed to do, which is that when you create a sub tag of a parent, it's supposed to adopt the properties. But for now, since it didn't, I'll show you how to do it manually, right? So over here, you've got the black and the white squares, and you can kind of tell the black refers to the font color. While I'm here, I can put my comma in there. And actually, I keyed it wrong because it was 115,000. So I put the comma in there wrong. So now I'm just going to change the font color to white and the background color here to green. And that fixes it. And I'll poke around and figure out why it's not doing what I thought it would do. As far as it's supposed to, with a tag, just adopt the properties of the parent. And if you like the little money bag thing, well, click back in, and that's here, and select, and it happens to be recent for me. So boom, it's right there. So now if I go back to here, I go up to projects. I can see Benchco 60K. Coaching and advisory is going to get me to 115. All right. So you see where all this is going? And let me see. All right, I got it. That's pretty cool in the chat. All right. Okay, and then over here I put marketing in here. I'm going to take that out. And by the way, I can share this brain with you in a web version. You'll actually see on each of these, I've got information here on each of these that I thought you would find useful. So, for example, if one of my projects is my bookkeeping services, right? And that's how I'm kind of defining this is each revenue stream, each major revenue stream is a project. We're going to change Benchco campaign to something else. I'll come back to that in a minute, right? But each major revenue stream is a project. That's how I'm viewing it. Okay. Because then that project generates revenue. And so over here, what I did was I laid out some notes that, like I said, I'll share this with you when I send the follow up after the webinar today. And you'll see notes that you might find useful for how to market this particular service of bookkeeping, right? Did I do something for bench here? I did. Okay. So each of these you can go through and, copy these notes forever. I've taken the time to put in I think a pretty good outline for how to market whatever this particular service is, right? Even tax planning, right? I don't know much about doing taxes. I've avoided it my whole career, but I certainly know how to market stuff and I know how to market the services. So let's quickly finish our values here, right? So the tax prep and planning row was going to be 225,000. I'm going to do this a little differently this time. I want to browse the tags. So let's go to value. Maybe if I create it from here, that's what it's going to do. Right? 225,000, enter. Oh, that's interesting. So it shows the value tag here in its colors, but anyway, not what I was looking for exactly. But that's okay. Easy enough to do. White and green. And give me my money bags. Okay. So now we've got that. Let's go back up here. I can click this home icon, goes to the home thought, right? Remember, I've got my breadcrumbs down here. So there's tax plan. I can get back there. And now tags. Um, wait, what did I do? Did I screw up? I thought I created 225. Let's try that again. Oh, it's here. It's weird. But it's not showing there. All right. Well, I'm going to go here. Oh, I know what I did. Oh, that's a label. Oh, that's a tag, rather. 225. Tax planning. Let's go here. I want to add a tag. That's weird. I'll put it here again. Okay. All right, 225 under value. So I drag the top node, which is basically saying make this a child of whatever I drag it to. And I think I may have created a label initially by accident instead of a tag. So definitely got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. Okay, so now I got tax planning with my tag of 225, right? And last but not least, let's do bookkeeping, which was going to be 126,000. Okay, so tags 126, enter. Okay, take the 126, drag it under value, and again, colors. All right, so now I have this pretty well decked out. Okay, if I go back here to bookkeeping services, now I'm back up to projects. You see how cool this is too, the way things are linked, right? It's not so linear like we're so used to seeing in a lot of the different apps we use for different purposes, right? It's a brain. It's like a brain. It's a neural network. I can link anything to anything from anywhere, right? And so to that end, what I want to do instead of calling bench.co campaign a project, I really wanted to, and this was based on how I evolved with my own process. Originally, I had stuff like this laid out, and then I said, you know what? No, here's the hierarchy as far as I'm concerned. Like you have the projects get linked to the goals, right? Oh, which reminds me, I linked this one, right? But all these other projects, right? Like bookkeeping, go to the 450,000, coaching and advisory for the 450,000, tax planning. So in this case, everything, of course, goes to the main parent goal. But what I would want you to do also while you're doing this is look at whatever you may use now to manage your project, whatever project management software you use, look at your other projects and get them in here and figure out how they fit into the scheme of this. Because, like I said, you may find, like I did, that there are things that just really aren't going to support this revenue goal of yours. They may be fun, they may be interesting. So I'm not saying never do them. I'm saying make them less of a priority. Get this stuff all going first. And so the next evolution for me with this was, something like this, the campaign. I wanted to think of it not so much as a project, but rather as the activity that supports the project. So that's what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to use this guy and I'm going to create a new parent and I'm going to call it activities. Okay. Then I'm going to unlink it from projects. Okay. So I can click on the link here. And the link itself has properties. It's a whole other, I could do a whole webinar just on the brain and how to use all of its little features. But I'm going to unlink it. That was a right click, by the way. So now I just have activities and Benchco. And then, so Benchco is the activity that supports the bookkeeping project. So let's link this down there. Okay. And then I'm going to unlink it from this. I could leave it linked. I mean, this is totally up to you in terms of how you want to see it. But the way what I like about this is I have activities. I can have multiple other activities. I might have activities based on marketing. Like most of this is going to be marketing, right? So my marketing activities for my tax services, my marketing activities for my coaching, and so on and so forth, right? So all of that would be under here, right? And so this is the activity that supports the bookkeeping service. I go to bookkeeping services. This is part of projects, right? And it's also part of this. And then what I could even say, which I've already done, is, well, the bookkeeping services supports the annual revenue goal, right? So the activity supports the project that supports the goal. And I'll keep stressing this. This is how I like to see it. This is how my brain evolved with how I wanted to look at this. You could do it any way you want, right? So I can go back up to here and back to activities. And let's say I want to create something here called coaching services and maybe put marketing first, right? So it's very clear. This is the marketing activity that I want to do to get more clients into coaching services. Okay. And while I'm here, I showed you a few examples where I had a lot of notes over here, right? This is a notepad, and each thought gets its own notepad. So I can go in here and I can write up all my notes. How am I going to first go about getting coaching clients? Well, probably the first place to look is my clients that are in other areas. Like maybe I have bookkeeping clients who want more of the advisory, or like I said earlier, I might have tax prep clients. Those of you who do taxes, I know you encounter this. And even if you don't, your clients are thinking, and I can almost promise you, every time you finish doing their returns, their next thought, whether they tell you or not, is, hey, you just had a look under the hood. Can you kind of give me some feedback on what's going on with my business? And what they don't understand is that you're up to your eyeballs in tax returns, and it's not part of the service of filing tax returns. Some of you may do it because you're nice. The reality is, if you are doing it, and you are nice, you should still be charging something separate and extra for it. It's a different service, right? So the point is, as soon as we start identifying these kinds of activities that are going to support the projects, that support the revenue goals, then we start thinking in terms of how do I market this? And the first place to look is your existing client base and see which of my clients, that are in bookkeeping, do I think can for sure afford it and probably need it and very likely even want it, but just haven't figured out how to articulate that they want this, or maybe they don't even realize it's something I can do for them, right? So you start making these kind of connections like this, and as I've said, it's not trivial. It just provides you with such incredible insights in terms of how your business is structured, what you can do, where you want to go, and like I've said, most importantly, maybe the things that you don't want to do. Okay, so you know like I said, the revenue goals are one thing. How much we want to have in and arguably, by the way, if I go back to my goals here, let's go home. If I go to goals, arguably the revenue goal is going to support the operating funds goal, right? And the revenue goal, you can say I already have it linked, definitely supports the non-revenue based goal, right? Especially if I'm basing on, let's say I say 10% of everything I bring in is gonna, go towards rescuing puppies, right? So you can even link goals to one another in the sense that, one may very well support the other, right? And then what I didn't really get into that I have in my own is, like, if I wanted to, I could go up here and actually separately from here. Let's do this. Sorry, let's do this differently. Here I have my goals and projects over here. Let's just do a sibling, right? I might have personal because then I really want to think in terms of all of my business related goals and projects should support my goals in terms of personal, right? You know how many times I've had clients come to me and want to do forecasts for their business? And I'm like, have you sat down and looked at your personal finances such that as part of the process of doing the business forecast, we want to make sure that your compensation and your share of net income and all of that is going to add up to something sufficient to more than cover what your personal expenses are. And they're like blown away. Like, oh my God, I didn't never thought of that. And I'm like, oh, well, we need to think about that, right? Probably the first thing we should think about is if I'm going to go into business for myself, I want to make sure that I can make enough with that business to support my family, right? Kind of important. Probably should know that before I go into it. Okay. So revenue streams are your projects, right? The totals, your goals in terms of revenue. The totals are your goals in terms of revenue, like we laid out on that very rough sheet that I had you all create. Um, Then we look at how much cash we're going to keep, right? So the revenue goals support these ultimate goals. If you make $1 million but have nothing to show for it in the bank, then where's it gotten you, right? Maybe you have a few assets if you spent it wisely, but that's about it. So you don't have the most important thing, which is the financial security that's supposed to come from all of this. Making money, like I said before, doesn't buy you happiness, but having money does buy you financial security. It does give you that critical resource to where you can enjoy those last 2 weeks off in December if you actually take me up on my advice and plan on taking that off. But there's more. As I said, we want to think in terms of what's our purpose, Why are we doing what we're doing? It's not to make money. That's a given. We have to go further, deeper, right? I gave you the example for myself of, rescuing puppies. And there's more. I'm just getting started. That's just the first thing. Okay. So you define your why in terms of what is your purpose? What's your purpose driven basis for building and growing your business, right? A lot of you, your first thought's going to be, oh, I want to take care of my kids. I want to put them through college. Those are all fine and good, but I want you thinking also in terms of the community aspect of this, right? So when companies define a cause, right, or many of them that they want to support and then make everything they do about supporting those causes, they typically do, and I've read this based on actual research, they typically do many times better than companies whose only objective stated anyway is to make a profit, right? Making a profit for your business is only exciting to you. No one else cares about that. I mean, your employees kind of care. They want you to stay in business so they still have a job. But if you go and have a meeting with your employees and you talk all about how much profit you want to make, unless you're also equating that to how much more money they're going to make, they don't care. They're not excited, right? So, but when you show them that a portion of every dollar they help you bring in goes to support a cause, then people tend to start falling all over themselves because they feel like now they're part of something bigger, right? And there's one more thing about this, and I said it already, but I want to make sure I emphasize it that you can't define the goal, the ultimate goal, the non-financial goals in terms of dollars. It has to be defined in terms of a number, like how many puppies I've rescued this month, or how many people I helped get access to a computer. There's a lot of what I'm sharing with you today is from Ron Baker and Paul Dunn's book, Time's Up, the subscription model for professional services firms. And Paul Dunn has an organization he started called B1G1. So if you're at a loss, you can actually use his service, and they've vetted like hundreds and hundreds of charities so you can find the things that align with your values and things that are important to you, right? And now all your revenue goals can support these other sort of purpose-driven goals, okay? So we've set this all up in the mind map. We've linked things. Like I said, plan on spending some time with this. Plan on digging in and going back and forth. You'll do this and you'll say, you know what, let me go back into the mind map because or into the model because I just thought of something else that I want to do that I think will help and so on. So there should be a fair bit of sort of back and forth. And then ultimately, once you have all these projects set up, then you're going to define those marketing activities that are going to help support the project. And as you're doing that, you might even start to realize, hey, crap, I'm trying to do all these marketing activities for all these different services. You might start to feel like maybe you're spreading yourself too thin. That can be an important insight that comes out of this, as in, do I need to pare this down and focus on only, one or two things instead of five or six things? You'll decide whether or not, and or the other answer is I can hire people to scale so I can focus on more things, right? As long as you have the right systems. You can't hire people into a non-system, right? But I can promise you that once you take the time to flesh this out, you're going to want to look at this first thing every day. The forecast should be the first thing you open every day. And so I want to go back to that spreadsheet and show you exactly what I mean. I mentioned this earlier, and I promised you that I would sort of give you this process. And I just need to figure out which of my screens it's on. So hold on one second. There it is. I think that's it. Let's see. All right, so this was the spreadsheet I had you all sketch out. Okay. And can everybody see this, the webinar copy, time management, and revenue goals? I just want to make sure I shared it properly. Okay, Loretta, I got the hands raised. I assume that means yes. Okay, beautiful. So let me quickly go sketch out just one quick revenue thing so you can see what this looks like from a very visual standpoint. In fact, what I'll do is I'll take the volume numbers from here, okay, and I'll just paste values into here. Okay, so boom, in an instant, this comes to life. So if I go to my goal tracking sheet and notice I put a color on it so it stands out in this particular list. And if you're not clear how I got here, In Google Sheets, you have something similar in Excel. I can click this little hamburger menu, is what that's called. And then I've got the list of all the tabs. It's a much faster way when you've got a lot of tabs like this. So here it shows me my goal for January is 34,500 based on what I just dropped in there. Okay. So how do I get the month date actual? Well, what I do now is every day I go into January and I have a report in QuickBooks Online that is preset that gives me month to date, all the deposits grouped by date. So I get a subtotal for each day. I go in there and quickly make sure that I'm not including anything that isn't revenue, right? But this is cash basis. I don't care what we've invoiced. This is what I've collected. For this purpose, we want it to be cash basis. For any other purpose, if you saw the article I recently wrote on LinkedIn, never do cash basis. It's only useful for filing taxes. And for this, here I want to see what did I actually bring in from different sources of revenue. So today's not done yet, but let's say I update my bank feeds and I go look at today or yesterday rather, or let's say on Sunday, I got $15,000, right? So what this model does is it shows me my under over for the day and it shows me my cumulative. What this is assuming is I've taken in no money all month, right? And so that's why I kind of picked a big number. All right, I've got one comment saying you're not seeing anything. So you should be seeing the spreadsheet on my screen. Are you not seeing that? Let me. Okay, so I read it. All right. So I'm not sure why, but maybe just check your different windows that you're looking at on your screen. One of them should be this. Okay, so really what I've been doing all month is and I use Notion for my project management. So I have a recurring task. It's not really a recurring task. I have a task that I just change the date every day. So every day, but it's set to remind me at 5 a.m. So by the time I get to my computer, it's there in my list of the first things I need to do today. And I go in and I key. So if on January 2nd, I took in $2,500, that comes in, right? Then maybe this day I got 500. This day I got, 1,500. And so on. So it takes me 3 seconds, sometimes 10, right? If I just have to update my bank feeds real quick in QBO, I wait till that updates. I add in any deposits that came in. I have rules, so I don't have to do any thinking. The deposits, in a click, they're added in, right? Because I have bank feed rules. And then I can go to this report that I've memorized. And like I said, in 2 seconds now, all I'm ever doing on any given day is looking at yesterday's deposit number. And notice I have conditional formatting, so it lights up today's date. So it's just very quick and easy for me to scroll over here. Every little detail like this is designed to make it as seamless as possible for me. And then I'm going to go in here on the previous day, and if there's any money that dropped in, I'll put it in. Now,
There is
if
a
I go back
question.
to the goals tab, it accumulates that here for me. So I can see my goal was 34,005. My month to date actual is 5,300. Then I just have to consider where in the month I'm at. Right. And one little tweak that I don't know why I didn't put it in your templates, but I added into my own, but it's easy enough for any of you to figure out how to do is if I just take equals, if I take the month to date divided by the goal up here and then format that as a percentage, then and I can just copy that across. So now I could see what percent of the way. It's just a better visual, so I can see if the month's almost over, I'd better be close to 100%, right? Not better be, but I want to be, right? And I say that because I want to make sure you don't panic. This is not going to be exact. There's going to be a lot of under over kind of stuff going on. So just bear that in mind. This should not be something that discourages you. It should be something that encourages you. And if you find yourself getting discouraged, then go back to your goals that you set and lower the bar a little bit because that's the last thing you want. I'd much rather see you set the bar low and exceed your goals and get excited than set the bar so high that you could never achieve it and then you feel discouraged, right? So, with
But
all
we
that
have a
in mind,
question.
and we just have a few minutes left,
We have a
and let's see
question,
how many
Seth.
people stayed to the end. Quite a few, actually. So, first of all, any questions?
There is one question from Dylan. He's asking, what are you
Any
naming cell?
questions? Okay, so that was how you measure progress and stay on track once you've taken the time to do all this. Okay. Now I mentioned that I would show you how to get access to my template. And I also already mentioned that it's included with 97 and up. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, which you can click on. You can click on it now and go back to it later. So I'm going to paste this link in, and then, all right, we'll get to the question in a second. Click this link. It will take you over to a special landing page that will give you a 30-day free trial. And then if you don't cancel, it renews at 147 a month instead of the usual 197 a month. But bottom line, you can take advantage of me, do the free trial, get the template, and then quit if all you really want is the template. I don't mind being that transparent about the fact that you can do that. I'm not going to get mad. I want you, I want to at least, instead of just giving you the template, I'm hoping you'll at least give 97 a shot and see what it's all about. Because this is stuff we talk about all week long in Slack. We have 2 weekly calls every week. Not to mention, I give you a lot of courses included as long as you stay a member. So, with that in mind, here's what I want to do with who's left in the chat. And so I'm going to give away 3 gift cards. One person is going to get $100 Amazon gift card. Then 2 people are each going to get $50. So what I want everybody to do is just type in the chat what you're going to use the gift card for. And Mary's going to pick her favorite 3 answers. I don't want to say best. It's just going to be Mary's favorite. So this way it's sort of random. I just didn't think we'd have time to write everybody's name down and put them in a hat. Otherwise, I would have handled it that way. Oh, Ron Baker's book. I love that answer. New scanner. All right, Mary, pressure's on. Give him a few minutes. Doggy treats. Good answer. Oh, I have a Dymo label printer that I'd never use. All right, we'll give everybody another minute or two to answer, and then Mary, you'll tell us. Mary, you can put it in the chat or put it in Slack to me so it doesn't get buried in the chat. Put it in our Slack workspace and give me the 3 names, and I'll call them out. All right, 15 more seconds. When my clock says 128, we're gonna call it.
But there
All
is a
right, that's it.
question.
Mary, who do we have? Just give it to me in Slack in order, and I'll call it out. All right, Mary's working on it. Meanwhile, what was the question? We had a question, and
Yes, there are
Dwayne, the
two
program
questions.
where I'm offering the discount is my 97 and up program. So I'll paste the link in again, so you can. That takes you to a page where you can kind of learn more about the program. Here's that. It's my world famous mastermind group. It's all just accountants and bookkeepers with every level of experience you can imagine. Dimpy, you've been a member for how long now? Like less than a year, I think, right?
Only completing this year.
Yep, Caroline's in there. Says it's worth every penny. See? That's not me saying it. All right, Mary, what do we got? Mary's still choosing. So much pressure. Okay, so number one with a $100 gift card is going to be Gene Reiser. Okay, Gene Reiser. So I'll follow up with you using the email that you registered with, and I'll just get with you to confirm the best email to use to send the Amazon gift cards. Igor Pimental, second, $50. And third, Anna Calderon for $50. So those are the three winners of our little Amazon gift card giveaway. All right, so Gene Reiser with $100, Igor with 50, and Anna with 50. Thank you all so much for coming and playing and joining. I do sincerely hope that this was very valuable and useful. And like I said, here's the link again one last time. Click on it, bookmark it, check it out. There's a page. I just recorded a video for it over the weekend, and I tell you a little bit about it, but all the information you need, everything that's included, is laid out on that page. And like I said, it's a 30-day free trial, so kind of a no-brainer. Join it, try it, and if you hate it, you can quit. I won't be offended. Igor says we are graced here by the presence of Mariette Martinez. That's correct. All right, and I'll stick around in case there's any other questions from anyone. Thank you, Jennifer. Glad you enjoyed. Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Michael. Igor, my pleasure. The name of the dashboard. The brain is the app we're using for the mind map, if that's what you mean. Oh, Momentum Dash was the browser extension that gives you the time and the quotes and stuff. So, oh, sorry, Loretta. I don't know what the pricing is in Australia. I don't know what the conversion rate is right now, or I've probably never known it because I've never been to Australia. I'd love to go to Australia. Ocean of Notion is an introductory course to Notion, which is what I use. I've later developed what I call the Bulletproof Notion operating system, but Ocean of Notion is where you start. It shows you literally how to get from a blank page in Notion to building out a dashboard where you can manage stuff for your clients and so on and so forth. And then the Bulletproof Notion operating system takes it to a whole new level. I designed a very, very intricate system of templates that you get access to with the Bulletproof Notion program. Never heard of Notion. Oh, wow. You got to try it. Notion is the kind of app that replaced like 8 apps that you're currently using. See, Dimpy will tell you she's using it. Is Notion in my 97 and up? Well, Ocean of Notion is one of the courses that's included. The Bulletproof Notion program is more of a sort of coaching program with a system of templates. That's not included, but you do get a discount if you want to join that. And of course, within 97 and up, you can just ask questions. We have a channel for Notion specifically. You can ask questions all day. Anna says, I have it, but need to adjust all the stuff. I get overwhelmed. That's why I designed the system of templates because it's this way I kind of did a lot of that work for you and got it all organized. And really, the key to it is the system of databases that I designed with it, where everything's linked to one another. So you can have projects with tasks that are associated with the projects, and the projects are associated with the client, and like everything's linked to everything. So Igor says, I've tried to get GPT to provide me with some Excel spreadsheets to determine qualifications for a loan mod, but it keeps messing up. So, yeah, I just Igor, you're in 97 and up, I think. So just ping me in Slack, and I'll do my best to try and help you with that. Obviously, I would need more information. Can one print Notion from a browser like OneNote? Yeah, it's not really called printing to, but there's an extension that I use called Save to Notion where you can grab any email or any web page that you have open in your browser, and you can stash it in any Notion database that you want or onto a page. Really, really easy to do. The thing about Notion is it can be a lot, which is why I like having people start with the ocean of Notion because that starts you simple, and then you kind of graduate to bulletproof Notion where it kind of takes it up about five notches. But like I said, I did all the work for you. So initially, all you have to do is learn how to use what I've created, and then over time, you kind of develop your skills with Notion, and I teach you that too, so that you get better and better at it. It's the best way I've heard Notion described is it's like digital building blocks, like Lego, right? It's like digital Lego where you have all these different pieces that you can use to put something together to create something, and then it's up to you to decide how you want to connect them based on what it is that you want to create with it. So very, very easy to get lost in Notion. The best way to approach it is to have something specific that you want to use it for or create with it, and that way you can get into it and stay focused on that because otherwise you can get lost. Do I have marketing in 97 up? Yes, we do definitely cover marketing as a topic quite a bit. We have a marketing channel. We have several marketing channels because over time I got specific. We even have our marketing copywriting channel where you can learn about how to write copy. So we cover just about all of it. Basically, if I have the experience, you're welcome to it. If I don't, there's a good chance somebody else in the group does because we've got just such a wonderful group of people that's developed for many, many years now. And like I said, every range of experience. How much sales training is offered? As much as you want, honestly. We have 2 calls a week. So all you really have to do, first of all, you can ask in Slack 24/7 and we'll give you whatever help you need there. And then you can request a topic on a call. Several times a year, I'll go over like how to do a 15-minute sales call, and then that's usually a qualifying call where then we'll go to the 1 hour call and I'll go through the script and give you the script for how to conduct those calls. And yeah, we've done role playing in the past. We've had people get on and I'll play the customer and they'll play themselves basically, or vice versa. They'll play. We one time we had, I forget who it was, but somebody, I told them intentionally, I said, be like the difficult prospect, like be as difficult as you can be, and I'll try and handle your objections the way I would if it were a real call. So yep, we can definitely do role playing. All right, Loretta, I it sounds like a lot there, but I hope that's good. I don't know. I guess I've now learned that the US dollar is strong against the Australian dollar. AUD is crap. All right, thank you all. Again, if there's any other questions, speak now or forever hold your keyboard. And if not, thank you, Dimpy, for helping out. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone, for
Marcus.
coming. Thanks for your great comments. And we'll do another one soon. My marketing guy doesn't want me to do webinars too often, but I like doing webinars, so screw him. I think I'm going to do one at the end of next month again. Maybe I'll call it screw him, colon, whatever the topic is. And we'll do it at the same time for sure. Okay. Janine likes my idea. Screw him. The screw him webinar. His name's Till. We'll call it Screw Till. He would crack up if he hears this. All right, so Dwayne, the bonuses are, if you signed up already, the bonuses are already there. Just log into the site. You'll see you have a robust library of courses you now have access to. It's all there. But the main thing is you should get an email with the link to join Slack or log into the site and the dashboard has a link. Bottom line, make sure you get into Slack. That's like the key to 97 and up. That's where all the action happens. And that's where you can reach out to me or anybody else directly. And if you're looking for a particular resource, I can easily point you in the right direction from within there. To Slack, you'll see Slack is our community where we communicate. Um, yeah, it's once you join 97 and up, the link should be there in the dashboard. It should still work, I think. So Igor, I doubt I have anything quite as specific as you need. Well, I do have a script, a call script. So again, ping me in Slack, and because it's all linked up in there, I can get it to you once we're in Slack together. So yeah, there was another community I had people in, but I've kind of shut all that down. I've consolidated everything. So you're either in 97 and up where you have Slack, or I have another community called my Galaxy Support Community, which uses a new product, new to me, called Pumble, which is a lot like Slack, but it's a different company, and I like them better than Salesforce, which is who owns Slack. So, all right, I gotta go. Reach out to me if you have any trouble finding anything. Just email us at hello@Nerd Enterprises, and Mary or I will help you and get you going in the right direction. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a better tomorrow.